Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Peterson.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys are having a great time wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this. As always, it is a Friday here on the podcast, so bringing that Friday energy to you guys. This is going to be a good episode because we are talking about something a little different. We're talking about note investing for all you guys out there who really want the passive type of investing. You don't want to manage properties. This is the one to go after. We got Eddie Speed with us here to talk about it. Eddie is from the Note School. I wrote that down wrong. I wrote the Note Speed, but that's your last name. Eddie is from the Note School. He has 40 years of investing in real estate notes. So this man has it all. If you want to know something about investing in notes, I'm sure he has the answer for you. So Eddie, this should be a good one. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. I told you before we got on here, we always like starting with stories and hearing how people got to where they are. I'm sure you got a good story behind you. So why don't you tell us, how'd you get here?
Well, I was 20 years old in 1980, and a gentleman that later became my father-in-law, who the lady I've been married to for 42 years, introduced me to this idea of buying discounted seller finance notes. And in 1980, interest rates were 18%.
Jesus
there was
Christ.
A lot of seller finance notes, right? And so I didn't start out this career as a real estate investor. Most people in notes started that direction first. I actually started out in the buying notes, buying discounted notes, first mortgages on houses, right? And so we married in 1982. We moved to Dallas-Fort Worth, and that's been my career. Really, since 1980 to this day, I am a note buyer. And about 25 years ago, and I still am, I'm a very active note buyer. I deal in a lot of the real estate investors. I work with them and like how to make good notes, right? I'm in Collective Genius. I'm in Billionaire Boardroom. I'm in Investor Fuel. I work with a lot of the guys in the masterminds and, work with, people that are connected with a lot of real estate investors. And what we show a real estate investor how to do is essentially take seller financing and it pays mortgage banking over the top of it. Most seller financing, quite honestly, is kind of accidentally made. They don't really think in terms of my asset is now a loan, right? They've sold the property and now they have a loan. So they don't know what a mortgage should look like at its highest level. And so in the early 1990s, I set up the note system for home investors. I've done it. That's why I bought 50,000 seller finance notes, is I was good at teaching real estate investors how to reposition their business to make the best notes. So on the note buying side, we help real estate investors with that. On the school side, we show people how to then go use notes in various ways that they've never considered it. A lot of your audience would say, well, I'm a rental property guy. And they may be, and that may be great. Rental properties have an issue. Since the virus, expenses have gone up about 60%. You were working on an insurance claim this morning, right? Right?
Good fun.
And the rents have gone up about 20%, or they've settled out at about 20%. So the expenses and the income didn't match like maybe people thought they would when we started looking at inflationary investments, right? So typically speaking, I can speak to this as a truth. If you have a rent house, you can owner finance that house likely and get 3 times the income you can from what you're netting in rent. I work that model every day for some of the most sophisticated real estate investors in the business. I know the math really well. And there's 2 reasons that's true. The first reason is people's mortgage payment on the same house is higher than they're paying rent today. In other words, the old rule isn't true. Seller financing isn't the same. So they're making a higher mortgage payment than they would pay in rent. And secondly, you don't pay any expenses because you're the bank.
Yeah.
And for those reasons, that's why those numbers have trumped up to where they are.
Makes
And
sense.
then the second thing I would say is people that are investing in notes get a check, right? I can take a $250,000 house in Dallas, right? It rents for about $1,800 a month. I'm going to get about 50% of that money. If I paid cash, I'd get about 50% of that income, and 50% of it goes out the door in expenses. So I net $900. But $250,000, if you're going to buy notes, is going to throw off about $2,700 a month in income. Statistically, that's just true in our industry, right? So you got 2,700 versus 900. Boom.
That's pretty easy math right there.
That's easy math, isn't it? So understand what I'll say right now is there are cycles in the industry. There are rental cycles and there are note cycles. This is my sixth market cycle, right? This is my sixth over the last 45 years. I'm now on number 6. And I would say that notes are not always great. But here's the thing that I'm going to bust a myth a little bit. Rentals aren't always great, right? So understand there is a time that you can make way more money with notes than you can with rentals. And I believe that we're in that cycle. And I model it a lot. And Gabe, I hang out with some pretty high level players, right? I mean, I'm considered the note guy for a lot of guys in this industry. And I see their portfolios and I model them. So I kind of know I kind of see this math.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you have to do all notes, but think of it in terms of this, Gabe. Maybe you don't need to do all rentals either. The other thing is,
does this I'm just kind of going at this from my experience. So I focus on the commercial side. We buy self-storage facilities and mobile home RV parks.
Yep.
I've sold properties, seller financing.
Yep.
And so I'm just trying to apply this to the experience that I've had. And I guess the first question is, what should someone who is selling their property, seller financing, what should they think about? Is there anything that they should be thinking about if they want to sell this note to an investor like yourself?
Well, first of all, have you ever gotten a loan at the bank or a mortgage company?
Yeah. It's
ask
horrible.
any
It's like pulling teeth.
Do they ask any questions?
A million.
Okay, so if you're going to loan somebody money, particularly a lot of money, shouldn't you be asking questions?
Yes.
Shouldn't you trust but verify?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the second that somebody seller finances a significant property and they act like it's, well, I asked the guy, I sort of the joke is I gave him the smell test, right? Come on, really? You're a business owner. Your asset now is a loan. You're coming to somebody like me and you're trying to go sell the loan in the secondary market. Guess what? We got underwriting. Like we bought 50,000 notes. We know just because somebody says they will pay doesn't mean they have the integrity to pay or the ability to pay, particularly if we come up on a rainy day, right? So the first thing I would say is that people that are seller financing a property need to realize they have now put a different hat on. They're no longer a landlord. They're now a bank. And to be a bank, they need to act like a bank, right? And Gabe, you as you fully know, you're in an industry that has seen a dip. And the big question is, everybody's got their fingers crossed, how deep is the dip? Right? Is it going to continue? Is it going to flatten out? I think a lot of it is going to be the asset class. I think multifamily there's a lot of people that have been drinking the Kool-Aid there, and I think there's a day of reckoning coming. And all you got to do is go read the real data. Go read the TREP report.
Yeah.
Go read the Fannie Mae quarterly reports. Like, don't listen to a guy on Facebook.
Well, that's why I like talking with people like you. I mean, you've what do you say, 40 years of experience in real estate. You've seen up and down cycles. I bought my first commercial property in 2019. And so, I don't see the experience like you have. And so I love hearing from your guys' perspective, because you can see where we're at and you're not phased. Even if it's up, if it's going, if the market's screaming, you're not phased. You're like, yes, there is going to be a top to this. It will start to bottom out. But if the market's crashing, you're not phased either, because you're like, you know what, this is the opportunity to buy. You just got to wait and time it out for the right moment to start deploying your capital. So I love to hear that.
The market signs have been all over the place clearly for over 2 years, right? You can go watch my podcast, and every month I do a market update, and you can fact check me. I was calling the ball on this more than 2 years ago, right? And you are in a more desirable asset class than others, right? Because your asset class wasn't over traded when the market was hot anyway. It was multifamily was over trading when the market was hot, and you could sell stuff for a lot of money.
4 caps, ridiculous.
It's just, but here's the thing about it. Let's be honest about it. While I love podcasts and social media and stuff, and information's fast and it lets people get their story out, it also means that there's a lot of promoters that are on social media saying things that are not factual. In other words, let's go lay up the TREP report, like, as you well know, is the gold standard in commercial real estate, right? What do they say? Like, I got what some promoter said, but is that really what the facts are? And so, I believe there's going to be a terrific opportunity in commercial real estate. Terrific. But the thing is, we've got to look at it. And a lot of guys right now have shifted to seller financing on commercial real estate. And I've helped them structure deals, and I'm in these masterminds, so I get a lot of guys that call me and say, and I build in some cushions in those deals today, because I'm saying, look, I have got some gray hair. I have seen things happen. And, sometimes street smarts, part of it is instinctive and part of it's experience, right? People will say in theory, experience trumps theory.
Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. If you've been kicked in the face at one point, you're never going to forget that. I'll give an example. I bought a self-storage facility in a market that was just screaming. But this specific area that I bought this facility in had high property crime. And that is a mistake that I never made again, because I got kicked in the face. I realized it doesn't matter what the market's doing. If you're buying in an area that has high property crime, don't buy it. And that's just goes to show, or it kind of goes to what you're saying there. If you have the experience, if you've gone through those up and down cycles, then you're not going to be making those mistakes again. So for somebody who wants to invest in notes, what's the first kind of steps that they take? How do they find these notes to buy? What are they looking for when they're underwriting them? Take us through the perspective of somebody who's looking to buy seller financing notes.
So the reason I built a school 25 years ago was I figured out if I had a school and I taught people how to do this, and I taught people the logic that otherwise they really didn't understand, then I could show them paths to go do the business, and then I could provide them opportunities to go do business. So my whole tool from the very beginning was showing people how to do notes so that they could either can create inventory of notes that I can help them trade out of or trade out a part of it, or I could help them. I could then deliver them notes in the marketplace. So I've been selling notes to my note school tribe for a long time, and we're better at it now than we've ever been. Look, I bought 50,000 seller finance notes. I'm a known commodity in that industry, right? And so people say, how do I go find notes? And I say, yes, you can get on websites. Yes, you can do other things, but let us at least show you how we do it, right? Because I build a system where people create notes to a formula. They then come to me and want to liquidate part of their notes, and I disseminate those notes downstream, partly to students, partly to banks, there's not just students. And that's what we do, is that we've created a manufacturing system where they're creating good notes so that I can then give them a exit market to go sell the notes for more money. And for you, if you want to buy notes, you're now dealing with notes that, as you said, now have structure and underwriting and a predictable result. You know, that guy that has a seller finance note with no documentation, it's kind of papered up, homemade kind of stuff, he's kind of proud of himself sometimes. But the truth of the matter is, that's amateur lending. What I want to show people how to do is how a professional lender can utilize seller financing at a different level up. So how do you find them? How do you evaluate them? All of that is around certain things. Now, yes, I bought 50,000 notes, and people have brought me deals that didn't have all the standards I would love to see. But then it has to have redeeming factors like seasoning. Okay, you bring me a loan with 4-year seasoning, I can forgive some of the sins that if you bring me a loan with 2 months seasoning, I'm probably not going to forgive those sins. I'm going to say I'm going to pass. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If somebody has shown that they will pay their note by paying the note for 4 years, that gives you a lot more confidence that it will continue to be paid into the next 5-10 years versus somebody who has only paid their mortgage two times. 2 months of payments really doesn't give you a lot of confidence that they will continue to pay the mortgage. So yeah, makes a lot of sense for me. So you mentioned
the most common thread I've found is this, Gabe: property. I don't buy notes on crappy property, whether it's land or houses or commercial. If it's in a crappy area or if it's a crappy property that you really can't go do good things with, I can tell you right now, it won't make a good ingredient to go make a good loan.
Yep. Yeah, no, a note is only as good as what backs it. And if you're backed by a piece of crap, then that's pretty much the value of that note, even if the note says it's worth $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned one area that people can go and find, get in the flow of these notes is with your organization. If somebody did want to start reaching out, finding their own notes, what would be the steps they took?
Well, you got to go get in the traffic of where people are creating notes. There's Facebook pages out there that people of seller finance Facebook pages, and I see people post every day. I buy notes. I'm a note investor. A little bit, to be honest with you, because we have a high production note shop. I'm thinking it wouldn't take very long for those boys to run out of money, like maybe one deal. Okay. So I try to show people, the thing about Note School is we show people how to go build a bank, not just how to go buy one note. If you're going to go buy one note, you probably don't need to come to Note School. There's websites out there, there's Facebook. You can go stumble around in a couple of hours and figure out how to do it. They may not be the grade of notes I would buy, but if you want to just go buy one note, go do that. If you want to learn how to actually do it and recapitalize and use other people's money to help fund your business and do that, like those are things that we have decades of experience with. And for that, it's more than just how to find a note. It's how to go actually not have to even build a note business, but build a strategy that you can do over and over.
Yep, absolutely. And that's true for anything you're in. In fact, the last episode, if you guys have been listening to this straight through, the last one we talked about raising capital. And just like in the last portion of that episode, we were talking about creating systems, processes. It's the same thing if you want to invest in notes. It's the same thing if you want to find deals. If you want to pretty much anything, build a team, you have to build those systems and processes, figure out the key components, the key activities that you need to be doing in order to move the needle, move the dial, and then just systematize that and rinse and repeat over and over and over. That is the quickest and most efficient way to build any business, any portion of your business. Note investing sounds like, it's not an exception.
It's a capital stack, Gabe.
Yep.
It's no different than a syndication. It's a capital stack. And you can fund it all yourself, or you can use some leveraging techniques and use some cheaper cost of capital to help fund part of your business so that the capital you have invested is earning more money. And, it's just a capital stack. It's no different than any other form of real estate whatsoever. And that's where I've spent a specialization over the past long time, right? So I've not only learned how to do it, but I've learned the best things to do. Not all of them are the best. And so we've kind of figured that out.
Well, there you go. 40 years of experience will do that to you. If you've done anything for 40 years, I'm sure you're good at it.
Yeah.
All right, Eddie. Well, I just took a peek at the clock. It looks like we have run it down. So I'm going to use that opportunity to push us into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. It starts with education. Could be any forum, could be a conference you've gone to, a mentorship program you've been a part of, book you read, movie you saw, anything. But I need 2 recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
Well, I think that if you want to understand something about personalities, that Never Split the Difference is the best book I've ever read that talks about how people think. It's more than selling them. It's dealing with people in a way to move people what people are stuck on to go move them to the next thing. Right. And
that has been on my reading list for so long. I have the book. I just haven't picked it up yet, but I do. Now that you've said it, I remember it. That's going to be next on my list.
Here's what I would say about educational conferences. Challenge who's doing them, right? Just who's doing them. Like, if you're interested in storage, whether it's I don't know exactly if you have an educational platform or whatever. Scott Meyer's a real guy that I know very well, totally legit guy, long industry friend. He knows the business and he is not going to tell you a tale. He's going to tell you the truth about how it really works, right? You want to come to notes? I think he would tell you I'm that guy, right?
There you go.
Just find something that is what is of interest to you and make sure that the person doing it, let's just be honest with you. If they're really slick, you probably ought to look around a little bit. I'm just, because
that's funny. I had an experience with someone. It was a sales guy. What was he selling? I can't remember, but he was just too charming, and I was completely put off by it. I was like, "You're too charming. You're just too nice." And whenever somebody's too slick, I like that you said that. You just got to watch out, because in real business, there's no reason to be slick, because you each know what you're doing. You're trying to reach an agreement, and there's no reason to be slick, to be super charming. It gets in the way.
Not everything about the business is slick.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's some muddy water, and you got to kind of know what that is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right. That moves us on to the next question. This is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Eddie who was just getting started. You said 1980. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
My father-in-law gave me this advice in 1980, and I'm going to give it to your audience. He said, if your income is growing faster than your net worth, you're going in the wrong direction.
Interesting. I've never heard that before, but I like it.
Yeah.
If your income is growing
I've been
faster,
around a lot of slick house buyer type guys that make a lot of money, but they don't, but they've not, people say they get in the business to grow wealth. Make sure what you're doing is actually growing wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, I have I have the opposite problem. My income or my equity is always just going so much faster than my income because I automatically just put it right back in real estate.
Yeah.
I need to actually just stop and grow the income for a little bit. But
Yeah.
all right, next question is about the US. It's a big place. There's a ton of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about buying notes in today.
Well, 25% of all seller financing is done in the state of Texas. So I
No
buy
way.
nationwide.
Interesting.
Yes, it is. I buy nationwide. I have for decades. So I know I bought in every, area
Yeah.
out there. But Texas for my industry is the best. And I'm not saying, and let me say this, Texas on residential housing, Texas listings are 35% higher than they were year over year, a year ago. So we're seeing the resi market, having issues with selling its inventory, and Texas is not immune to that.
Hmm.
But it's a pretty friendly place to do business. And while I buy across the country seller financing, I naturally buy more than in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, I've bought two self storage facilities and one RV park with seller financing in Texas. Two of them are in DFW actually.
Yeah,
I feel like people are just more amenable to that conversation for
they
some
are.
reason. I don't
They
know
are.
why, but I love investing in Texas. It's a really great area.
Yeah.
Yeah, good suggestion. And that leads us to the next question. This is about lessons learned. You have 40 years of experience. I'm sure you've learned a few lessons along the way. So, not every deal that we get into goes the way we expect it. A lot of times, a wrench is thrown into the mix and we get to learn a lesson. What was a deal that went a little sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Well, I would say I've done so many deals that I'm going to give you a little higher. I'm going to step up a little higher in the answer.
Mm,
Accounting. The biggest mistakes I've ever made in the business were not having the right accounting information,
mm-hmm.
right? And so I would tell you that we work really hard at doing the business, but if you're operating on numbers that aren't correct, or your accountants are throwing something on your balance sheet that you didn't know about, and all of a sudden you realize now you can't scratch it off your balance sheet because now it's been reported to the IRS and all that kind of stuff. Like, be tight in your accounting. I feel like we're pretty tight in our accounting now, but there's been times that I wasn't as focused on it. And I would tell you that I look back and think if I would have gotten better at that quicker, it would have saved me a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm going to take that as a message to me because I've been thinking that I need to improve the accounting practices that we do here. It's a difficult thing, especially when you have multiple LLCs and they're all getting different sources of income, blah, 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 blah. Cry me a river kind of thing. But it is something that I definitely need to improve. And now that you've said it, I'm gonna focus a little bit more on that one.
That's awesome.
All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then when they reach out, what can they expect? What kind of things do you offer?
Well, I'd like to give your audience a gift, right? And that is, I'm going to send them to my website, but I'm going to send them to a specific page on the website. That this is a master class that we offer. It's a couple of hours, and we're going to like show people some very clear examples of what things that we've discussed today.
Hmm.
So it's noteschool.com. That's our regular website, right? But it's noteschool.com/REI club.
Okay.
And it's a solid class. It is not too elementary for some pretty seasoned people, and it's not too complex. I believe if you really understand something, you can make something that can be kind of complex understood in simple ways. And I think we're pretty decent at that.
Perfect. That is noteschool.com/REI club. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to get involved, click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description, and in there you can find Eddie's link. All right, Eddie, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show and sharing your 40 years of experience.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, all we ask is you leave us a review. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.